Rick Hale. It is Mojo Monday. How are you, sir?
I'm doing incredibly well. It is Mojo Monday. We're excited to be here.
Favorite day of the week, man. All right.
100%, as you'd like to say.
100%. We are into your network is your net worth series. We had a great conversation last week, just kind of framing it up. But this week, we're going to talk about connectors. And I found a really good quote out of the book, The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell, that I just want to read and start off with to kind of frame our conversation, Rick. It said, connectors are people who seem to know everyone. You can find connectors in every walk of life. Connectors are sociable, generous, and are naturally skilled at making and keeping in contact with friends and acquaintances. Why is being a connector an important part of your network is your net worth?
Well, I'll break it down even one step further and say that the quality of most people's lives truly circumferences around the people that are in their lives. So if you want a positive, productive, generally joyful life, those are the people that you want to attract and keep into your world. But there's two reasons people are attracted to someone who's a connector. It's either influence or capital or ability to bring money to an experience, whether work related. But the greatest gift, I think, and the most powerful superpower is having influence. And influence often means having the right person at your avail when a circumstance arises. So that's why it's so valuable, is that it's the greatest resource on the planet. It's the human resource.
Absolutely. And I think this conversation is centered around people, right? And being in relationship with people and the value inside of those relationships. And I know we're going to break that down, but I wanted to start with this is if we were breaking our conversation into 3 points today, the first point would really be it's a relationship focused perspective. It's an approach to life, right? It's an approach to people, it's an approach to business, but it's relationship focused. Now, if I was giving an opposite of that, it would be transaction focused, meaning I'm only going to be in relationship with you when I'm getting something out of it. Relationship focused is really meaning I have a long-term relationship with you. Sometimes you're going to get more value out of that relationship. Sometimes I'm going to get more value out of that relationship. But at the end of the day, it's a mutually beneficial relationship. And it's the center of your network, right?
Yeah. And look, we talk a lot about transactional versus relational, and relational is long term. Relational has, it's more of a marathon than a one time sprint. But there's no, in thinking through this, there's no flaw in having transactional relationships. And the circumstance where I think that's justified is when you have to work with someone or through someone to achieve a goal or accomplish something, and they're not really cut from the same DNA. They're not givers by nature. They're just not your people. And, there's certain people that are attracted to you individually and uniquely because of your unique self. And so a transactional relationship is not wrong if there's not manipulation and it's to some degree a win-win-win. And then you move on. I mean, you don't have to, there's a saying, don't water the weeds. If, your garden, it consists of certain flowers and that's who you want in your garden, then don't introduce weeds or other, distracting elements. And so those are the people that, maybe for a season and a reason you have to deal with it and then you move forward. But the ones that are real valuable, that really are a match for your energy and your style and fulfill, relational energy that you're chasing, those are the ones you really want to fertilize and water.
Yeah, I'm just sitting there thinking about car sales.
Mm,
Most car sales are transactional, but
yeah.
there are a few great car salesmen that take a relationship approach to how they sell cars, and they end up selling customers multiple cars. And I would almost advocate those are the best or the most rewarded salespeople. Yet I would think somebody transactional in the car sales industry could succeed at a high level too. So,
They
um,
could. But
Yeah.
realize the relational guy is going to give you honest feedback, even if it's contradictory to the transaction. That's the difference. Their intention is to enhance and grow a relationship that, creates longevity and future opportunity. And if you live in the transactional world, it's quite common that it's a one and done. And so
Yeah.
that's why they tend to do better, because people trust them. And then when you trust somebody, you go often, and you're not guarded and fearful. And so how do you live in that space so that, the flip side is that, how do you become closer to that styled person, when it's most appropriate?
Yeah. So if we were moving to our second point here, is it's adding value, right? Like if we subscribe to being a relationship focused person, we want to be a connector. Value has to be a part of that equation. And it's not always equal value, but value is value, and it needs to be a part of that equation. I think you use the term disproportionate value. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's taking a disproportionate interest and all that. You can see it two ways. One is you give more than you take. That's a beautiful way to live your life. And the cool thing is giving more than you're taking is, it's sometimes it's just being risk averse and leaning in, recognizing, hey, this person is worthy of all that I have for them in this moment, in this time, and in this, relationship. And if I get anything back, that's great. If I don't, no big deal, because it was a worthy investment. So the disproportionate piece, one, is that you're just prepared to give more than you take, or having minimal expectation for reciprocity. And usually the caliber and quality of person that you're willing to take that stance with, it's probably coming back, because that person
Yeah,
has
of course.
character, and their motivation is similar, or you wouldn't feel that compelled. But a disproportionate interest literally comes from the thinking that you're going to give more than you're going to think above and beyond the obvious, and you're going to be strategic, loving, and kind beyond the obvious, and beyond their expectation. And then reality is the reality that it is, because that's what your heart led you to do.
Absolutely. So if I subscribe to a relationship focus and I want to be in relationship with people over a long period of time, and I understand the importance of adding value, I'm asking myself, what does that look like? It could just be a text of gratitude. It could be, hey, I saw this. I was thinking of you. It could be me having a system behind the scenes saying, hey, make sure you touch or add value to these people's lives on this frequency, right?
Yeah, I mean the reality of feeling appreciated and feeling that gratitude, it's almost like motivation. Everyone needs motivation, but the source of the motivation is irrelevant. It doesn't matter if it's positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, fear of loss, or opportunity gained. The same thing applies when it comes to taking a disproportionate interest in someone else and expressing extreme kindness or thoughtfulness. It doesn't matter if you've got a computer system that reminds you, hey, this week's important. This is their anniversary, or this week's important. Hey, this is the anniversary of when you met, or maybe you had a great experience, or a reminder around birthdays. And, here's one question: when in taking a disproportionate interest, how do you know what that looks like? Have you thought
Yeah.
about that?
No, to be honest, but I think it just means you're not giving with any kind of expectation in return.
True.
So if your mindset or your framework is that you're just going to constantly give and add value to people in your network, and you don't, and you're doing it without an expectation of a sale, an expectation of something in return, to me, that's disproportionate, right? You're just giving.
You are. But I probably didn't frame the question well enough.
Okay.
The what I was really going for, though, is how do you know on an individualized basis that they're receiving it, and that they're feeling that energy of unselfish, disconnected from a reciprocal, thing that you're expecting or hoping from them? And the answer to that is ask better questions and get to know them at a deeper level.
Yeah.
And it's not uncommon for people to live on the surface and invest as because it takes time and energy. So that's why choosing the right people to take the disproportionate interest with matters, and being strategic again, because you only have there's finite amount of time every day. But the people that are worthy of that, it's worth taking the time to really understand and get to know them. And so ask better questions. Like, they'll almost give you the layup. Where can I add value to your life today? What's your biggest challenge? I remember when the market shifted in a significant way in 2008, 9, and 10. And we were coaching and training, and I was living in the same space of calling people, and we didn't have good news. Like, things weren't like, hey, I can't wait to share this. This is awesome. Because for a 3 year, almost 4 year run, everything was just descending, and there wasn't an ascension and positivity in the marketplace and in the world. And but at one point, I just call and go, I was thinking about you. Is there anything I can do to add value, support you, or someone that you know and love in a meaningful way that makes things better?
Yeah.
And so that could be disproportionate by literally coming in with, not coming in with a prescribed, obvious checkbox behavior or activity.
Absolutely. I want to sidebar for a minute. So when we were going to talk about connectors today. My original thought was like, oh, I need to be the guy that connects people to, hey, you need to meet this person, or here's a great referral for you, or here's a plumber, here's a car wash guy. You know what I mean? Like, I was thinking it was a connection
Yeah.
to people, yet I think our conversation could be that, but it's not only that.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to stay top of mind with somebody, give them more ammunition to think of you, right? If you're in the sales business and the referral based business, and, especially in our industry of, selling houses, e- anyone who's capable, who's ready, willing, able, and has the capacity is a possible client. Maybe there's geographic constraints or certain things that make it an ideal client, but even if it's not an ideal client, now it's a referable client outside of your market areas. So theoretically, anyone is a good referral, anyone thinking about investing or buying real estate. So how do you become that person? Well, when people think about you, you become, the reticular activator in their brain for anything. If it's just real estate, not every conversation is just real estate. But if you represent a much broader spectrum of value, which goes back to your network and your capacity to connect the dots, I remember thinking the greatest day ever is when people would call me and ask about buying a car, or call and ask about buying, maybe a timeshare in Florida, or, is this TV the best, like silly things, but, and part of me, there's a small voice that's like, oh my gosh, they're calling me about that. Like, you do know what I do for a living? But, I reframe my energy to, man, they thought of me first. And when they think of you first for anything, for everything, they'll think of you specifically when the time comes. And that's real value.
I think that could be a measure on whether or not you're a connector or not. If people are calling you for things, that means they see value in the relationship with you, and you've brought value in previous conversations. Therefore, they now are seeking value from you. And I
Yeah.
think that could be a good measure that says, hey, I'm a connector.
Yeah. So it tells you that it's a clear answer to the question, do they like me and do they trust me? And
Yeah.
likability and trust lead to, that an amazing amount of potential when it comes to that, relational energy and opportunity to help serve each other. But here's another thought about it, Brett. What if you might have the greatest network on the planet, and you asked a really good question. Are people calling you regularly, inquiring about the myriad of potential ways you can help them? And if the answer is no, it's not that you don't necessarily have that network. It's that you haven't promoted your capacity to serve at that level. And maybe that's part of being in taking a disproportionate interest, is being a little more specific and strategic and sharing, hey, by the way, here are some things you might not have thought of that I can do to add value to your life. And that's a great contact and a great call and a great illustration of adding value.
Absolutely. Well, our third point is they know and keep in touch with people regularly. And I think we've kind of already hit this inside some of the other points, but I think it's worthy of mentioning that I actually believe the best connectors almost have a system behind the scenes that says, they're not just, oh, I hadn't talked to grandma in 3 months, I need to call her. They're like, okay, I call grandma every Sunday night. Or in context of business, um hey, maybe I need to have a system that says, I if a reminder that says, if I haven't talked to Rick Hale in the last 30 days, I need to reach out to him. And that system causes me to make sure I'm adding value constantly and consistently to your life. And I don't think there's anything, it's not fake. I don't know the word I'm trying to think of. It's actually being purposeful about being a connector and adding value to people. And whether it's just a gratitude text or just checking in on you, or it's a, hey, I was thinking about you and I saw this picture and it reminded me of you. Look at this little bitty fish, Rick. This is what I always see you catch, right? I mean, just fun little things. But
It just shows that you're paying attention, man, and you're watching. You're
exactly,
paying
right?
attention to my life.
Yeah. And but I think it's a the point I'm trying to get across is it's okay to have a system. It's actually smart to have a system behind being a connector and adding value to people's lives.
Yeah, I mean, marketing is. There's a book. I think it was Jack Trout and Reese Reis that wrote a book. Marketing, the positioning of the mind, or anyway, it's a book on marketing, and they talk about the method and the message. So that anytime you want to land with someone, you've got to consider how you're delivering that the content you want them to hear and feel and the energy behind your intention. But there's also the method, and then there's the message itself. And so there's two parts, but the trigger that spawns framing that is irrelevant. It goes back to motivation. Everyone needs it to succeed, but the source of it's irrelevant. The source of what makes sure that you don't miss an opportunity to add value and connect with the right frequency. So that's another element of marketing, is the frequency. It's irrelevant. You're exactly right. If you called me, today and said, "Hey, just want to check in, man. How's fishing been going?" Or "How's fill in the blank that I know you've been working on this project." I don't care if you had an alarm that went off or a trigger. It just wouldn't have even occurred to me.
Yeah, there you go. So if we're taking this concept of connectors and in relation to your network is your net worth, what's our challenge this week, Rick?
So I'd recommend you make a list of people that matter in your world, personally and professionally. Maybe even it might be two lists, and then kind of rank 1 to 5 real quick. Like what the or 5 being maybe the ultimate most important people, inner circle, and then out to the right of that, kind of qualify what level of disproportionate energy are you putting into that relationship strategically. Are you showing up in a way that matches the value that you perceive they have in your world? And if there's a disconnect or a gap, then the next column should be, what can you do this week to shore that up? How do you elevate your investment so that there's balance and there's counterbalance and it's truly reciprocal.
There you go. What's today, Rick?
It's Mojo Monday, brother.
Yes, it is.